On the night of 9th October 2010, in Southeast D.C. apartment, a 24-year-old mother of two children, Unique Harris, tucked her children to sleep at approximately 9:30 p.m. after watching a movie together. Later at 10:39 p.m., Isaac Moy, a 43-year-old man whom she had known for only 2 months, arrived at her apartment, calling her on her cell phone just moments before entering her building. Unfortunately, the following morning, the children woke up to find their mother missing. Every attempt to find her bore no fruits, and later on it was discovered that a man came into her apartment that night, took her away, and murdered her. Who murdered this young and beautiful lady? This is the story of Unique Harris. Unique Harris was born on January 31st, 1986, in Richmond, Virginia, to Valencia Harris. She had 2 siblings, that is, a brother and a sister, and she was the eldest of them all, even though they had different father. Unique went to Forestville Military Academy in Forestville, Maryland, but after studying there for 3 years, she got transferred to John Marshall High in Richmond, Virginia, for her senior year. However, in the year 2004, she was able to graduate from high school. She later met a man whom she entered into a relationship with, and they were blessed with their first child, a son whom they named Richard. 2 years later, they got blessed with another son, whom they named Euandre. Unfortunately, Unique and the father of her children stayed together for a few years before they separated. In the year 2006, Valencia, Unique's mother, moved from Virginia to Washington, D.C., but Unique and her siblings stayed in Virginia. Family was everything to Unique, and she was always there for her siblings no matter what. After ending her relationship with the father of her children, she decided to think more about her future. So in the summer of the year 2010, she moved to Washington, D.C. to be closer to her mother so that she can get a fresh start. Unique was staying with her mother as she searched for her own place. But because the houses were too expensive in Washington, D.C., and Unique didn't have enough money to rent an apartment in a good neighborhood in Washington, D.C., she found an apartment that she could afford in Southeast D.C. Unfortunately, Southeast D.C. faced issues like poverty and crime. Therefore, Valencia was so worried about her daughter, Unique, staying in that neighborhood. Valencia feared for the safety of her daughter and grandchildren because she knew that Unique has never lived in Southeast D.C., a state which faced high rate of poverty and crime. Unfortunately, there was nothing that she could have done since her daughter had already made up her mind and moved there. However, Valencia was able to have a sigh of relief when her daughter moved into an apartment which was 5 minutes away from her apartment in Washington, D.C. That meant that she was somehow closer to her daughter and grandchildren. After moving to Southeast D.C. in September 2010, Unique decided to go back to school. So she enrolled at a message therapy school, and her mother, Valencia, supported her by taking care of her children when she was in class. Unique and her mother would see each other pretty every day. Unfortunately, later on, Valencia broke her leg and had a surgery. Valencia was on a bed rest, so on October 8th, 2010, which was on Friday, Unique picked up her sons from school and went to visit her mother. During those weeks when Valencia was on a bed rest, Unique took good care of her. Fortunately, Unique's grandfather, Richard, also came to help out so that Unique could finish settling down in her new apartment. The grandfather cut Unique's hair. Unique also asked him to cut her son's hair before they could leave. But by the time he was done, it was already dark outside. So Richard dropped them off at their apartment. He then told Unique that he would talk to her the following day. The grandfather then left after Unique and her children had entered inside. On October 9th, 2010, a woman named Tiffany, who was Unique's cousin, came over with her 9-year-old daughter to visit. It happened that Tiffany also lived in D.C. After the visit, Tiffany's daughter decided to spend the night at Unique's place. On the other hand, Tiffany left for the night. Later that night, Unique and the children got ready to have a sleepover and a movie night. At around 8:30 p.m. that night, Valencia called and spoke with Unique. Unique told her mother that they were having movie night and that they were getting ready to bake cookies and pop popcorn. A few moments later, her grandfather also called and spoke to her briefly. The children could be heard playing and laughing in the background, and everything seemed perfectly fine. That night, Unique, her sons, and her cousin's daughter watched movies until they got sleepy. All the children went to sleep in the boys' room at 9:30 p.m. The room was located right next to Unique's room. At 10:39 p.m. that night, Isaac Moy, a man she had known for only 2 months, arrived at her home, calling her on her cell phone just moments before entering her building. Unfortunately, the following morning when the children woke up, Unique was nowhere to be seen. At around 9 a.m., Tiffany's daughter called her mother, who was across town at the time. She then told her that they woke up, but they didn't find Unique. Tiffany told her daughter not worry. She assured her that perhaps Unique had stepped out for a second and she would be back in no time. After Tiffany ended the call, she started calling Unique's cell phone. Unfortunately, the phone kept ringing. Tiffany then called her daughter back and tried to reassure her that Unique will be soon back. Because Tiffany was across town at that time and was unable to get to where Unique lived, she arranged to get her daughter at 3 p.m. that day. Meanwhile, throughout that morning, Tiffany kept in contact with her daughter. Unfortunately, when she arrived at Unique's apartment at 3 p.m., she found the children still alone. She knew that it was time to call Valencia and let her know what was going on. She called Valencia and told her that her daughter, Unique, was missing from her apartment. The two then tried to figure out where she might be. They contemplated the idea that maybe Unique had woken up early to run an errand and got stuck somewhere waiting for public transportation. However, Valencia knew that something was not right because Unique was not answering her phone. They asked the children if they had heard anything, but unfortunately the boys couldn't remember hearing anything because they had fallen asleep right away after Unique had put them in bed. However, Tiffany's daughter said that she kind of remembered hearing a man's voice, but she wasn't sure if it was coming from the TV or if it was coming from the apartment next door. Valencia, Tiffany, and Richard called around to different family members to see if anyone had spoken to Unique, but unfortunately, no one had spoken to her. Richard then went over to Unique's apartment and stayed with the boys for a little while, hoping that Unique would come in. When Unique didn't come, he took the children to Valencia's house. After dropping them, he returned back to Unique's apartment to get some clothes for the boys. While inside the apartment, he looked around to see if he could find anything that would give him any idea where his granddaughter, Unique, was. He discovered that her purse was hanging on the chair, but her phone and keys were missing. When he went to her bedroom, he saw her glasses folded on a pillow in her room. Richard's heart sunk. He knew that something was very wrong. His granddaughter had bad eyesight, and she had been wearing glasses consistently since 4th grade. There was no way that she could have gone somewhere voluntarily without her glasses, since she could barely see without her glasses. After finding Unique's glasses, he called Valencia and told her that things doesn't look good at all. Valencia then contacted the Metropolitan Police Department and reported her daughter, Unique Harris, missing. However, the police assumed that Unique had left on her own. Valencia was offended by the police response. However, when the police began looking into her disappearance, they visited her apartment, but they didn't find any sign of struggle. There were also no signs of forced entry. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras in the hallways, and the intercom system did not work. Therefore, the police were unable to find out if anyone had entered or left the apartment that night. As the investigations continued, the police spoke to the neighbors of Unique. Unfortunately, they couldn't remember seeing anything that night. The police figured out that maybe a foul play could have been involved in her disappearance. The police learned about the father of her children, who was living in Virginia during that time. They learned that they were in court at the time over custody arrangements for their children. The police spoke to him, and he had an alibi. He also passed a polygraph test, and so he was quickly ruled out in her disappearance. The police began to think that perhaps Unique had known the person who was responsible for her disappearance and let him into her apartment or voluntarily left with them, expecting to come right back. In the weeks following Unique's disappearance, investigators found nothing substantial that would lead them to finding Unique. Unique's mother, Valencia, revealed that just a few days before Unique vanished, she witnessed a murder right outside her apartment window. Valencia then told the police that she got a call from Unique's a few days before she vanished. Unique was so upset on the phone, and she told her that she had just witnessed a murder. The police doubted if Unique had been seen by the perpetrator because they were able to determine that Unique lived on the upper floor of the building. They also learned that Unique has not spoken to the police about what she saw. The police did not believe that the murder she had witnessed was related to her disappearance, so they ruled out Valencia's story. In the months following Unique's disappearance, the search for her continued, but there was very little information about her disappearance. Valencia spoke to local news organizations and passed out missing persona flyers, and eventually, a few months later, she was connected to the Black and Missing Foundation, which is an organization founded by two Black women to help find missing Black people. A year after Unique vanished, the Black and Missing Foundation put together a video of Valencia asking the public for any help in finding Unique. The detectives continued with their investigations. They interviewed a maintenance man who was also a convicted felon. The man had been fired from Unique's building for illegally entering apartments. Unfortunately, they found out that he was not connected to Unique's disappearance. They also discovered that Unique had earlier on gotten into an argument with an ice cream driver. So they interviewed the driver, and they quickly ruled him out as a suspect. Unfortunately, Valencia got a call from someone who told her that she would never see her daughter again. The investigators believed that this was a prank call. Unfortunately, months quickly turned into years without finding any leads. 2 years after Unique went missing, the Metropolitan Police Department released a video featuring Valencia again asking for public help. Still, they received nothing that gave them any real answers. As time went on, Unique's children went back to Virginia to live with their father. On the other hand, Valencia turned into an activist. She wanted to find her daughter, and she also wanted to help other families whose loved ones had gone missing. In the year 2014, she featured on the show Our America with Lisa Ling, and she talked about Unique and her search for answers. After years of not finding Unique, detectives began to believe that Unique was no longer alive. So they asked Valencia to petition the court to have Unique declared legally dead. Valencia did as she was told, but at the back of her mind, she believed that her daughter was still alive, and she was determined to find her. By the year 2017, the case had been assigned to new detectives, and they re-interviewed several people, including Unique's eldest son, who was 5 years old at the time their mother disappeared. Unique's son told the detectives that he remembered waking up in the middle of the night, and upon opening his door, he saw a man whom he knew as Iceberg in the apartment. He told the detectives that he then closed his door, but he could hear his mother shouting to the man to get out. He heard muffled screams. Iceberg was known by his real name as Isaac Moy, and he was Unique's acquaintance. The detectives had spoken to him earlier on, but he was not named as a person of interest in Unique's disappearance. In fact, the detectives had collected bodily fluid from Unique's couch. They also had discovered that someone had cut a piece of fabric off the couch in order to conceal their DNA. Fortunately, the detectives were able to collect a sample. However, the detectives did not put him in public view. It was later revealed that Isaac had gave the detectives a contradictory stories. At one point, he admitted he was the last person to see Unique. Fortunately, a year before the detectives viewed Unique's son again, Isaac Moy had been arrested on an assault charge, and he was serving time in prison. So his DNA had been collected and entered into the system. The detectives had tested the DNA found on the couch and matched it to Isaac Moy. But Isaac wasn't arrested in 2017. In December 2020, Isaac Moy was arrested and charged with second-degree murder of Unique Harris. The detectives had uncovered that Isaac Moy had spoken to Unique on her phone at least 13 times before she disappeared. Isaac was also wearing a GPS monitor, and therefore the police were able to place him at Unique's apartment on the night Unique went missing. He didn't leave Unique's apartment until 7:30 a.m. The GPS also revealed that Isaac went to a wooded area behind his home. In October 2020, a jailhouse informant came forward and told the detectives that Isaac Moy told him something about a missing girl. He added that Isaac then told him that they will never get him because he did it right away, so they will never figure it out. Even though Isaac had been arrested, Unique's body had not been yet found. He denied killing Unique Harris. He told the police that Unique left because she was stressed about her life. The detectives didn't know the motive of Unique's murder. However, they believed that she murdered sometimes between the hours of 3 a.m. and 7 p.m. on 10th, and that Isaac removed her body before the children woke up. In October 2021, Isaac Moy was officially indicted by a grand jury and will set to make his first court appearance past November 2021. Isaac Moy's murder trial was set for May 2023. People still don't know what happened to Unique Harris that night, and her body has never been found. In September 2023, Isaac Moy, who was 46 years, was sentenced to 35 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. During the sentencing, Judge Anthony Epstein acknowledged the profound impact on Harris's family, noting the uncertainty surrounding her final moments due to the absence of her remains.